Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's the plumber. I've come to fix your sink.
Okay, that I don't even know what to say to that.
I
Hi, Andy.
figured
How's it
I'd
going?
change it up for all those people who've joined us multiple times and they're opportunity. Come on in.
It's
So,
good. It's our
we want to keep
trademark.
it. Yeah, I know, but we want to keep it interesting and fresh. Welcome everyone to Andy and Ermos live. Uh, Just a little bit of housekeeping. We do like you to put into the chat if you're a first time contender or a repeat offender and where you're from. Some of you, I'm sure, have been here before. For some of you, this is the first time. We do like to stay on topic for what we're discussing today, which Ermos is going to introduce. This isn't a Planswell support type of webinar things. This is us talking shop and on a specific subject that we think would be of interest to you. And I'm going to pass it over to Ermos to introduce the show and the subject.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andy. Appreciate you always being here. This is a lot of fun. TGIM, everyone. Thank God it's Monday. It's another week, another opportunity for Andy and I to make a difference in your lives. And then in turn, you guys make a difference in everyone else's lives. So glad to see everyone here. Andy and myself have both been advisors for a long time. So everything we talk about on these webcasts, podcasts, live shows, these are all personal experiences, either by myself and or Andy, or it is a real life experience from one of our advisors that we work with. So, long story short, these methods, these strategies, these tips are actually field tested, and we know they work. So these are things that you can just run with, write them down, have a pen and paper ready, and use this stuff because it really works. We're here to help you grow your business. Andy.
Yep. Or you can also rewatch this episode in the next 24 hours. It's posted in Advisor HQ, as are all of the webinars that are created are available in Advisor HQ. Ermos?
Looks like there's a lot of first timers here, Andy. So hopefully we won't disappoint. But let's get right into it. This is our 110th episode, as Andy mentioned. If you're looking for more content, just go back into Advisor HQ, and you can get access to all 110 episodes. So today's topic is conversion tips to get more clients. I mean, who doesn't want more clients? I'm going to assume that every single person here does. That's the reason why they're here. They're looking to learn. They're looking to grow. So let's get right into it, Andy.
You got it, sir. Go for it.
Okay, the first thing I'll talk about is a little bit of a rant. I hear this all the time. Advisors want to close business. I never quite understood. And by the way, guilty as charged, I used to use this term as well, but I never quite understood in our industry why we even use the word closing. I mean, what the heck are we closing anyways? We're not closing anything. And after 25 years of doing this, I finally recognize that at the end of the day, we're not selling pens. We're not selling widgets where we close somebody, we sell them, and we walk away. I would argue it's the exact opposite. Like, this is the beginning of a relationship, not the close of really anything. And when I'm coaching my advisors, one of my favorite sayings is that words matter. Like, they truly do. It's all about a mindset. So try to start thinking of the way you're working with prospects. You're not closing your prospects, meaning that they're one and done. You're converting them. You're converting them from a prospect into a client, because what this is the beginning of hopefully a very, very long-term relationship. Andy?
Yeah, and I would use the word opening as well, as opposed to the stark contrast to closing. You are opening dialogues, you are opening a line of communication, you are opening a channel to help and serve somebody, not closing it, right? And you're converting somebody from a stranger into a client, right? You're taking them from, I love the saying, and I use this morning, friends, are just, strangers are just friends you haven't met yet. And I think the same can be true with clients. They're strangers that you haven't found a way to help yet and converted them into a client relationship. This is all about relationships. And it's why I don't think we're talking about this here, Ermos, but I want to echo or harken back to something that we say over and over again. You've got to detach yourself from the outcome. So this is not about closing clients, right? It's not about booking the next meeting. It's not about selling products, right? This is about connecting and having conversations and converting this small talk, uncomfortable situation into an open, flowing line of communication. So I think it's very apt that we get out of the mindset of closing versus converting. Ermos?
All right, so here's a tactic that works very well, and it's whatever the prospect says to you, you repeat their words back. I'll kind of explain why you want to do this. A lot of times, advisors feel uncomfortable when there's a gap or a pause. First of all, it's okay to have a bit of a pause, but what you're looking for is sometimes they say something that catches you off guard. You want a little bit more time to think. You want to show that you're actively listening, which is highly, highly important. And I'm going to give you an example of how you can get closer to the real objection. When a prospect says, I need time to think about it, that is not an objection. That is not an objection. I know Andy's going to have an opinion on this, a very strong one at that as well. So the way I would respond to someone who says to me, I need time to think about it, is you need time to think about it? So I would repeat the exact same words back to them with a little bit of an uptick in the form of a question, because what I want is to dig a little bit deeper to find out what the real objection is. What is the reason? Because I want to think about it is a catch-all phrase, which is not a true objection. There's something else underlying, and we need to get to the bottom of it. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to convert them into clients. So by simply repeating the words back to them, in this case, you need time to think about it. It allows them to elaborate, unpack that for me. And then they may say something along the lines of, well, maybe I need to do a little more research. Oh, a little more research. What exactly do you need to research? So at this point, there's something missing. Either you missed something or they missed something, but it's important to find out what that is. Andy?
Yeah, for sure. I actually put this closer to an objection category. It's just not specific, right? Like, you're too much. I don't like your product. This isn't something we want. That's an objection, right? Like a straight on objection. This is somewhere in between, in the sense of, typically, if somebody needs to think about something, and it doesn't matter what interest, um oh my god, I escaped my words, industry that you're in, but let me think about it, usually means one of two things. They either don't trust who's giving them the information or selling them the product, or in this case, the advisor, that they're competent or that this is the right fit for them, right? Or they didn't understand it. They didn't understand why this is something they should do, or a combination of those two things, right? So that curiosity of, you need to think about it, shouldn't be like, you need to think about it. It's more like, you need to think about it. Help me understand what part of it you need to think about, right? And I'm telling you, it's one of those three things. Either they don't trust that you're acting in their best interest, or that this is the right solution for them, or they didn't understand what you had articulated the solution was, or a combination of those two things. And right then and there is when you should be exploring that. Because if you don't, and they leave the office, you are now almost back at square one, and you're likely going to get ghosted, especially if it was a situation where they didn't trust you or didn't trust that you were acting in their best interest, right? So you've got to get this on, right? I had a consultation recently, this morning actually, about this, and it was like, yeah, I'm sending people information after a consultation, and I'm like, you may as well kiss them goodbye, right? Especially if they didn't ask for that information, you need to find out, how did they feel about what you talked about? Do they think this is a solution for them? Anyway, I'm rambling on here, but if you've listened actively, like is mentioned here, you should already know exactly what somebody wants and needs, how they want to be spoken to, and what would make them happy to the point where they would want to proceed to the next stage of it. Ermos?
All right. This is another thing that I've done wrong in the past. You're saying everything, you're saying all the right words, you get to the point where the prospect says yes, and then you systematically talk yourself out of that sale. So this slide is amply named "Get a Yes and Just Shut Up." Like, get a yes and just shut up. So don't talk yourself out of the sale, because everything else that you say at this point or after this point, after somebody says yes, has the potential to unwind everything that you've done to actually convert them. So here's the wrong way to go at it. Oh, Andy, fantastic. This sounds really, really good. You know, my clients really love these stocks and you're going to love them too. And then they may come back and say, well, wait a minute, what stocks? What stocks are you talking about? And then all of a sudden you open up that can of worms and you've basically, as Andy would say, you started from square one. Whereas the proper response would say, after somebody is interested in working with you, is, Andy, this sounds really good. I'm going to send over an email to get the process started. That's it. I'm going to send over an email to get the process started, because they've already said yes. There's nothing else that you need to say or it has to be said. Andy?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have talked myself out of clients where they were in and on board and whatever, and I just keep talking, and then that started raising questions for them. What do you mean by this? Oh, that's something I need to think about or talk, we need to talk that over a little bit, or now you've got me worried. Maybe I should go back and talk to my other advisor or talk to my kids when I'm like, oh my God, Andy, why didn't you just shut up? Right? Because now you've you've derailed yourself, right? And there's a reason that there's a saying less is more, right? And sometimes we can get people to fill in the blanks in the right way, but more often than not, people will fill in the blanks the wrong way. And especially if you fill in those blanks for them and that is misinterpreted, or start raising more questions. So I absolutely believe that there's a good balance between getting information and giving information, and then shutting up and moving on to the next stage, right? And the chances are, if that question or that concern wasn't a major breaking or breaking point for them, they're not going to bring it up again, right? So why should you highlight something that currently they're not worried about, right?
All right, next slide. Volume negates luck. So my argument is, it's not how much time you put in, it's how much reps you put in. So the best way to guarantee that you will be successful is to do it as many times, or so many times, that failure is really just an unrealistic outcome, because you just get so good at it. Even if the increase in how you get better is just incremental, the fact that you're still doing it means you're getting better, period, end of story. So for example, if someone's making 200 calls per week over a 50-week period, that's 10,000 calls over the course of a year, as opposed to somebody that maybe makes 50 calls a week over 150 weeks, 3 years, 7,500. So who's going to get better quicker? The person making 10,000 calls in 1 year versus the person making 7,500 calls over 3 years. Momentum is a real thing here, because what happens is, the more calls you make, the better you get. The better you get, the better the outcome. Raises your confidence. Also, timing wise, we know that when it comes to financial planning, timing it's in many cases everything. So somebody that may need your services may not need them today, but they may need them 2 months from now, or 3 months from now, or 2 weeks from now. You just don't know. Something happened in their life which causes them to get concerned, have a serious pain point. They want to get off the fence. They need to do something about it. So now there's urgency, but you never know when that time is. So the more times you make a call, luck's going to have it that you will come across somebody that's going to fall into that category. And then the other one too is just constant improvement. The more calls you make, the better you're going to get. And the better you're going to get, the better success you're going to have. More meetings, more clients, more business. Andy.
Yeah, I mean, we already know this when it comes to physical fitness, right? You are going to be a lot healthier, a lot stronger, a lot more flexible if you're spending, 20 minutes 5 times a week working out. And you don't even have to do heavy lifting necessarily, as opposed to saying, I'm not going to do this little bit of manageable stuff that I get better and better at each week, technically, as well as my body responding to it. As, oh, you know what? Instead of doing 5 times 20 minutes, I'm going to go to the gym on Saturday and pump huge weights for 2 hours once a week. the results are not even going to be comparable, right? So understand that there's no difference here, right? This is about repetition. This is about getting good. It's building that muscle memory. And where this is really important is that if you're doing it on a daily basis, it becomes habit, and you just do it without thinking, and you're likely going to be having more success, right? Because you're spreading out that activity, and timing, as Ermos mentioned, is everything. But something I heard the other day that I knew before but hadn't been articulated quite the way that this was. I always used to think courage turns into confidence, right? You have the courage to do these things, and then you have some success, or convert a client, and now you have confidence because you know you've done it. Confidence is the memory of winning, right? The memory of doing good things and having good results from them. Whether it's increasing your connect rate, whether it's turning a client, a prospect into a client, that is what builds your confidence, so that moving forward, you just don't think about it. You just know this is the activity that I need to do, the frequency with which I need to do it, which I have control over, and that will turn into confidence. And if I'm lacking confidence, I just remember, hey, last week I just did these things and I had 4 people book a meeting with me, and 2 of those look like they're going to become clients. Of course I want to make more dials. Of course I want to keep doing this every day, right? So, and so I say too that momentum is more powerful than speed, right? Like once you get up to that, having that momentum, that's much easier to maintain, right? And so absolutely, this is the best way. It's almost impossible not to succeed if you consistently and persistently do the things that make you win. Hermos?
Andy, I thought that was gold. What was that again? Confidence is the memory of winning. Is that what it was?
Confidence is the memory of winning.
I love that. Very well said. I love that. All right, next one. Dancing shoes over boxing gloves. Whenever you're talking to a prospect, it should not feel like a battle. It should feel like a dance. It should feel like something is smooth and something is going in the right direction. Here's a takeaway that you should hold dear. You cannot argue with someone that's agreeing with you. Let me repeat that. You cannot argue with someone that's agreeing with you. So if the prospect says, I don't have time, you don't argue that they do have time. You say, I totally get it. You're busy, right? And of course, they're going to agree to that. Or when the prospect says, I already have an advisor. I know many advisors that go right into attack mode. Well, does your advisor do this? Does your advisor do that? Maybe it's time for a second opinion. So this is you battling with the other prospect now, trying to convince them that even though they have an advisor, they should consider switching. Instead, of course, Andy, I expected you to already have an advisor. So this is what you call a pattern interrupt, where they're expecting you to do something, but then you end up doing the exact opposite. So move with rather than against your prospect, and that will go for a much smoother conversation. You're more likely to get that conversation going versus trying to be combative. And by all means, don't win the battle at the expense of losing the war. So what I mean by that is if they make a statement or an objection and you argue it, and even if you win that argument, it doesn't mean that they're going to become your client now. If anything, you've just proven them wrong and they feel bad about themselves. So at the end of the day, it's not worth winning the battle to lose the war. It's best to lose the battle to win the war. Andy?
Number 8.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a difference between giving directions and giving people direction, right? This is about guiding somebody. You talked about, and it's something that Chris Voss talks about, is turning a wrestling match into a dance, right? And leading somebody in a way that feels comfortable and flows and just feels natural, right? And that really lends itself to opening up that trust, right? And to me, that is the crux of every relationship, whether it's with an advisor, with your significant other, whatever. It's all based on trust, and you're not going to build trust by challenging everything, by taking an adversarial position, because it's all a foundation of communication, right? And so and seeking understanding, right? So you can still be that curious force. You can still be, that person that may not agree necessarily fundamentally with the person on the other side of the table or the person that you're doing that dance with, but that doesn't mean you can't still move together in the right direction. And I know this, maybe it sounds a little, woo out there, but it really is true, right? And, you think about how much more effective people are in whatever scenario where they understand where they're going, why they're there, and that they trust the person that they're working with or whoever's taking the lead in the conversation. And the sometimes the client is the one that can take the lead, right? And help you help them. Ermos?
Absolutely. I think the client should be taking the lead. All right. So know the answer before asking. A lot of times it's obvious, other times it's a little bit more subtle, but you should have a pretty good idea if the conversation is going well or if it's going south. Only ask for the business if you think the answer is yes. If the meeting itself or the discussion or the chat is just not going anywhere, it's like pulling teeth to get answers, then it's best not to ask for the business and maybe ask for a follow-up conversation in the future. So some of the things that you should be looking out for: buying questions. If they ask you, what are the fees that you charge? How quickly can I get access to my money if I have you manage it? What documents are you going to need from me to move forward? These are buying questions. These are good. If you're getting questions like that, then you absolutely can ask for the business. If they're enthusiastic, if they're asking lots of questions, that's very good if they're curious. And of course, body language. I know today it's a little bit more difficult with Zoom, although Zoom might still work. Phone calls might be a little bit harder as well, obviously. But body language is a big one. If they have open arms, then chances are they are open to what you are saying. If they're sitting back like this, then that's a bad sign. If they're leaning forward, good sign. Smiling, good sign as well. So all this stuff are things that you should be looking for. And if you're getting those types of positive reinforcements, that's a really good time to ask for the business. Andy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from somebody that does most, probably like 95% of client interaction through Zoom and Google Meets, I've definitely learned a thing or two about picking up on body language, making sure that I'm always including both parts of that couple, right? And and you can see those things, right? You can see that sometimes one person takes the lead in the driver's seat with answering everything, and sometimes the other person, you can see, wants to ask a question or whatever. I always make sure to include both people, right? Because I know the person who's asking the questions and actively listening to the answers may or may not be the person I resonate with all the time, right? And I want to make sure that I'm upping my odds that both of them feel like they're included in these decisions. That and sometimes, I mean, I'm sure we all know this, Ermos, spouses aren't always on the same page. And that's one other obstacle I might be fighting about, because even if the person that took the lead loves everything that I'm saying and is like, yes, 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 I know if the other person has different ideas and different views, I don't even have a chance to address those or find a meeting of the mind. So you're talking about not just fighting an uphill battle. I'm having to climb two mountains, right? And I don't even know it. So yeah, it's absolutely there. And I think maybe the underlying side of this, Ermos, correct me if I'm wrong, is you also don't want to ask things that shoot you in yourself in the foot, right? You don't want to say stuff that is going to almost beg for a no, because if you're pressing it to this is decision time, when really instinctively you're like, they're not ready to make a decision, I don't want to push this, right? I sense that there's something else here that I may or may not be able to get to the bottom here, like today. then you schedule that next time to talk, right? Or maybe the people you're talking to, as I said, aren't on the same page, and they're going to associate that dissension or that conflict with you not being the right advisor for them,
Well,
when
Andy,
that really
sometimes
isn't the case.
there's reverse psychology in that as well, because I think you brought up a good point. If you, at the end of your conversation, you say something along the lines of, hey, you know what, no rush, take your time, that actually puts them at ease and actually makes them more likely to say, you know what, I think we're good, let's move forward.
Yeah.
As opposed to, if you're really pressing and really pushing for them to make a decision, then they're going to feel pressured and they're going to feel like, whoa, wait a minute, maybe we should really think about this. So reverse psychology does work at times, and I think that would be a perfect time that it actually would work.
Guarantee, yeah, for sure. And I've even said this thing. It sounds like you guys aren't ready to move forward, or it sounds like maybe getting your financial house in order is not a priority right now. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, 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 no. We're not saying that, right? Or even things like, sounds like you're a bit skeptical about insurance, right? Am I hearing that right? No, 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 no. Now it seems like they're defending their position instead of you calling it out necessarily in a way or convincing them that they're wrong about something. All right. This one is a important one.
Probably the
Not
most
that the
important.
others weren't.
Yeah, this is probably the most important one. It's empathy over sympathy. This is something that I've been using over the last 4 years or so, and it has made such a profound impact. So if there's one takeaway today that you walk away with, make it be this one. So when a prospect says something along the lines of, I lost my father last year after battling cancer for 8 years, an advisor might say something like, oh, you know what? I can so relate. I lost both my parents not too long ago. So where is the direction of the conversation going at that point? So the prospect has kind of put their heart in their sleeve, thrown out there, I've lost my father. And then the advisor comes out and says, well, I've lost both my parents. So the direction of the conversation is now in the direction of the advisor. Well, the whole point of this conversation is not to find out information about you, it's for you to find out information about the prospects. So instead of showing empathy, caring about someone's feelings, the advisor has now made it about themselves, which is not the direction we want to take. Empathy sounds more like this. So when the prospect says, I lost my father last year after battling cancer for 8 years, the response should be, it sounds like that was a difficult time for you. The direction is now solely on the prospect, because what's going to happen now? It sounds like that was a difficult time for you. Yes, it was. My father was very near and dear to me, and he shaped a lot of my worldviews. Oh, your worldviews? Can you tell me a little bit more? Or can you unpack that for me? Yes, he taught me everything I know about money. He taught me about debt. He taught me that the value of a dollar. And you can see how the direction is now going in a way where you can actually open up the conversation. It's all about the prospect. It's all about what makes them feel what they feel, as opposed to making about the advisor. So the person who cares the most about the other person is going to win that sale. So keep the prospect, not the sale, as the priority. And I know you've heard this before. I know Andy likes to use this phrase, and I love it. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that will get them to open up. And empathy is one of those things that will absolutely get your prospects to open up and talk about what they're feeling. And once you can reach their pain points, then 90% of the goal is there. Andy?
Yeah, and I can tell you, I was so guilty of this at the beginning of thinking like having that commonality with something like that, and I would have been the person that said, "Oh, I lost my person too," because you think that's building rapport and connection, but it's not, right? It's kind of saying, "Oh, my situation is." It's almost like one-upping them or something, and it's now putting the light on me, which you don't want to do. This is all about being interested in the other person and asking questions and uncovering what is meaningful to the other person. And the reason that this is so important is I think we have this misconception that to be great in sales, you have to know the clever thing to say at the right time or be slick about things. And it's really not. It's all about being curious and being able to ask questions that may seem awkward, right? Or may precipitate that silence. But, it's one of my favorite lines from Chris Voss. He said, if a conversation is feeling uncomfortable or awkward, you're on the right track because you're getting to the heart of the situation. You're getting to the meat of a conversation. You're getting the opportunity to find out what people really care about. You're getting below the surface. And that's where relationships are built. That's where trust is built. And you're also going to be able to, understand that trust is built on telling the truth, not just telling people what they want to hear, but you've got to have that relationship and give that feeling that you've given that person that feeling of safety in order to get there. And that's by listening first.
So Andy, where can I find out more?
Well, Ermos, if you have questions and you'd like to hear from other advisors who are already having success and quite frankly, who failed, right? Come to PlanCraft, right? You get to talk to people just like you or people that aren't just like you that have had success or had failures that you haven't had yet or that maybe you can avoid. This is a great opportunity. Ermos and I can't even think about what you would put a value on here, right? In being able to learn from other people that are, at least been with Planswell longer than you in this kind of nuanced approach and have figured things out or learned from other people. And we see that all the time in PlanCraft where somebody learned something or tried something new because somebody had shared something they had learned that worked for them. And now they feel like they want to pay it forward and say, hey, I use this service for, content creation, or I've used this line or whatever. And I see a question here today from John asking, we're finding better success with lower wealth categories. The higher net worth folks are not as receptive. What are our thoughts? That is exactly the kind of question to be bringing up into PlanCraft. Not to dismiss you, John, but it's also getting multiple opinions on it instead of just Ermos and myself, right? Because we may do something that fits for us and not for you. You may find other people that resonate with you and are willing to talk offline. So definitely we want, that's the reason why you should join PlanCraft. And to elaborate so you can hang around with winners, what we mean by that is kind of hearkening into, I think you'd agree, Ermos, confidence is the memory of winning. You're hanging around with people, in some cases, that now have more confidence to try new things because they've experienced these little wins and are sharing that with you, their colleagues. Ermos?
So Andy, where can I sign up?
Well, you can go into I can put this in here. I don't really know, but if you go into Advisor HQ and you just type in PlanCraft into the the field there, the search bar, that'll take you to signing up for PlanCraft. If you can't find it, you can always email Ermos or I. If you're not a partner and you're watching this on LinkedIn Live, I suggest you go to tryplanswell.com, speak to one of our reps. But basically, it's pretty easy. You'll find a link. The only link I can find right now that's easily accessible is to the Tuesday sessions. And this happens one Monday, one Tuesday, one Wednesday, one Thursday for every single month. Oh, here I found it.
Next PlanCraft session, I believe, is tomorrow afternoon. I can.
Actually, I don't think there is one. I think that's the old one, the last Tuesday of the month.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we've added a session into next week because it's Labor Day. So I believe the next session is September 5th in there. But when you click on this registration link, it'll tell you the upcoming dates for the meetings that are scheduled for that day of the week.
Sorry, Andy, let me put in my 30-second pitch here, guys, just so you know, it is a forum. It's peer-to-peer. It's myself and Andy. We facilitate a discussion, but it is not like this where Andy and I are talking at you. It's basically 30 or 40 advisors in a room, and we all discuss best practices. We share tips. We share what's working, what's not working. Questions are asked. There's answers. And the reality is, the reason why Andy and I love PlanCraft so much is because we actually get to watch advisors grow in real time. They come in on week one. They're fresh. They're new. They don't know what to do. They ask questions. They get the information they need. They run with it. They come back next week. Hey, guys, this worked. This didn't. What did I do wrong? Try this. Try that. Great. Fantastic. They come back the following week. The point is, every single week they come back and they're better than the week before. And some of the best, most successful advisors using the PlansWell platform are the people that come to PlanCraft because they're coming and they're learning, and they're actually learning from other people's mistakes, and then from the advice that they get from myself and Andy and other advisors. And it's just an amazing community of advisors that all help each other out, and we all grow together. I mean, if you're not coming to PlanCraft, you are losing out on the best part of PlansWell. The best part of PlansWell is not the leads. It is PlanCraft. Andy.
Yeah, for sure. And please connect with us on LinkedIn too. You know, we're posting stuff in there as well on a daily basis. Ermos's stream on LinkedIn is amazing. I aspire to that. So there's lots of ways to get in touch with us and help us help you. And that's our show for today. This will be up within the next 24 hours in Advisor HQ if you want to watch it again. And I think we have some partner interviews coming up in the near future, so stay tuned. There will be no Andy and Ermos show next week because it's Labor Day. And here's Ermos's part that he likes when I get to do my little dance. Have a great day, everyone. Get out there, do the repeatable things that you have control of. Make the dials, make the calls, be yourself, and trust me, good things will happen. Ermos, always a pleasure.
Pleasure's mine. Bye, everyone.